Stocky, short-tailed forest pigeon shows a diagnostic head pattern, with yellow forehead, green upper nape, and burgundy collar. Back, wings, and tail dark brown, with gray outer tail feathers. Underside grayish with soft yellow wash on the breast. Juvenile browner, with rusty edges to feathers. Singles or pairs forage on the floor inside montane forest. Typically runs away rather than flying. Restricted to Sulawesi Island, where no other similar species occur. Gives a deep hooting call, sometimes with a barely audible introductory note, whoo hoo, or w hoo w hoo. A medium-sized ground dove of lowland and foothill forest. Reddish back and wings interspersed with pale blue-gray, diagonal bars. White from throat to belly, edged with black and a messy yellow-orange smudge in the center of the chest. Bobs its head as it walks actively on the ground foraging for seeds and sometimes invertebrates, including worms. Flutters wings when alarmed. Pale, diagonal bars in the wing differentiate it from any other ground dove. Call, a deep, warbling trill, getting lower and softer at the end. A very rare medium-sized ground dove of lowland and foothill forest floor on Mindoro. Iridescent bluish on the head and back of the neck, with a purplish back, a blackish wing with white triangular marks on the shoulder, a white throat and underparts, and a small red, bleeding heart in the center of the chest. Unlikely to be mistaken if seen well. The only other dove likely to flush from the ground would be Asian emerald dove. Apparently gives a low, crew call. A medium-sized ground dove of forest floor on the Sulu Islands, extremely rare and possibly extinct. Bluish-gray color on the head, back, and sides to the chest extends across the chest in a partial breast band. Note the blackish wing, white underparts from the throat to the belly, pale buffy color under the base of the tail, and obvious red, bleeding heart in the center of the chest. Unlikely to be mistaken if seen well. The only other dove likely to flush from the ground would be Asian emerald dove. A medium-sized ground dove of lowland forest floor, bluish-gray on the head, back, and sides to the chest, with blackish wings, a pale gray shoulder and wing burst, a white throat and sides to the chest, a dingy pinkish belly, and an obvious dark red, bleeding heart in the center of the chest. Note the scaling on the back. The Central Eastern race has more gray on the chest, unlikely to be mistaken if seen well. The only other dove likely to flush from the ground would be Asian emerald dove. Voice is a low, upslurred hooting note. A medium-sized ground dove of forest floor from the lowlands to lower mountains on Luzon. Bluish-gray on the head and back with a pale gray forehead, a blackish wing, a pale gray shoulder and wing burst, a white throat, chest, and belly, and an obvious bright red, bleeding heart in the center of the chest. Unlikely to be mistaken if seen well. The only other dove likely to flush from the ground would be Asian emerald dove. Voice is a mournful hooting note, first rising, then falling. A very rare medium-sized ground dove, a foothill forest floor on Negros and Panay, iridescent greenish-blue on the head and sides to the chest, scaled on the upper back with brownish flight feathers. White underparts narrow from the throat down the chest to the belly. Obvious white crescents mark the wing and sides of the chest. Note the red, bleeding heart in the center of the chest. Unlikely to be mistaken if seen well. The only other dove likely to flush from the ground would be Asian emerald dove. Song is a short, accelerating series of low notes. A large, distinctive pigeon of lowland and montane forest, long bill, white forehead and dark reddish neck, metallic bronze, green and blue bands in the wing, feeds on the forest floor, and perches upright on a branch, bobbing its head, shy and difficult to see. Thick-billed ground pigeon is a similar size, but has a white cheek rather than forehead and lacks iridescence in the wing. Voice, a repeated series of rapid, upslurred whoop notes. A little-known species from lowland and foothill forest. Long bill and colorful iridescence in the wing. Underparts and face white, roughest from the crown to the upper back, and sides of the chest. Rare and secretive. Feeds on the ground and lands on a perch when flushed, bobbing its head. The only ground-feeding dove species of this size and color. Vocalizations undocumented but apparently an upslurred, pipia, and deep, flat, hoop notes. A fairly large ground-dwelling forest dove. Male is mostly dark with a diagnostic pale head and breast. Upper parts are roughest brown, head pale gray, belly blackish brown, and throat, neck, and breast cream-colored. Female entirely brown, with head, neck, and tail considerably more rufous than rest of body. Singles and small groups inhabit forested lowlands on Timor and wetter islands. Female distinguished from Little and Timor cuckoo doves by shorter tail, dark eyes, and absence of barring. The species gives a two-note hooting call with a short introductory note, and an upslurred second one, whoop-whoop. A little known, medium-sized ground dove of foothill and lower montane forest. Dark body with purplish sheen on the upper back and shoulders. Distinctive white throat, chest, and eyebrow. Some females appear to be duller versions of the male, while others resemble the juvenile with no white. Nomadic and feeds on the ground, including on seeding bamboo. Male type unmistakable, juvenile type similar to bronze ground dove, but white-bibbed is larger and longer-tailed. Voice a series of deep, flat, hoop-hoop notes, and a frog-like croak. A rotund, short-legged ground-dwelling dove that usually runs rather than flies when startled. Slate gray belly contrasts with paler gray chest and head, and with purplish shoulders and back. No similar species occur in its range, apparently rarely vocal, but has been heard giving a snarling sound. Beautiful dark velvet dove with a pristine white face, throat, and breast. Endemic to Chuuk and Pohnpei, in the Caroline Islands group. Inhabits forested areas, including disturbed patches adjoining agriculture. Forages actively on or close to the ground. Unlike many other doves and pigeons, flushes more or less silently, typically flies only a short distance when flushed. This dove is accurately but misleadingly named, for the male's whole upper body is white, not just his throat. He also has a wine-red patch on the back and upper wing. Female is dirt brown with darker back and wings. Inhabits the northern Mariana Islands and Yap in the Caroline Islands. Found in both pristine and degraded forest, often near habitated areas. Forages primarily on the ground on Yap and in trees and bushes on the Marianas. Coos are deep and sonorous. A rotund, short-legged ground-dwelling dove that usually runs rather than flies when startled. Male is unmistakable, dark-bodied with a purplish iridescent shoulder, a bright white chest and face, and a blackish crown patch that extends to the neck. Female similar but has a beige belly, chest, and head with a dark spot behind the eye. Apparently rarely vocal, but has been heard giving a typical dove-like coo. A rotund, short-legged ground-dwelling dove that usually runs rather than flies when startled, mostly brown with a pale whitish-gray chest and face. With good views, the pale cinnamon neck and head are distinctive. No similar species occur in its range. Gives a typical dove-like woo-hoo-hoo call that accelerates over around 15 notes. A rotund, short-legged ground-dwelling dove that usually runs rather than flies when startled. Both sexes have a brown body with bluish-gray chest and head. Males have an iridescent pink shoulder patch. Most obvious identification feature in the field is the glowing white eye ring of the male, especially in more eastern populations such as those in the Solomon Islands. On mainland New Guinea, the species is a resident of upper elevation montane forests. No other similar species occur in its altitudinal range. Gives a typical dove-like woo-woo call which is quiet and easily missed. A rotund, short-legged ground-dwelling dove that usually runs rather than flies when startled. Male has a distinctive dark purple back, wings, and belly, a whitish chest crescent, and a light gray chest and head. Females usually resemble males, though some have purple-brown bodies with a very ruddy chest and head. Inhabits most forest habitats, including rainforest and bamboo thickets. Very shy, sometimes heard giving a series of low-pitched, typical dove-like hooting notes. A rotund, short-legged ground-dwelling dove that usually runs rather than flies when startled. Male has a dark body with an iridescent pinkish-purple shoulder patch, a cream-colored chest, and a gray head. Female has a ruddy head and chest with olive back and wings. Juvenile is entirely dark brown, prefers mature primary forest, apparently up to 1,000 meters of elevation. Vocalizations poorly known, but include a typical dove-like repeated and accelerating woohoot woohoot woohoot. Extinct, last reported in 1927, formerly Solomon Islands, Ramos and Makira. Extinct, last reported in 1774, formerly Tana Island, Vanuatu. Extinct, last reported around 1800, formerly Norfolk Island, Australia. Large rainforest pigeon, often found foraging on the ground on stocky pink legs. From behind it presents as a steel-gray bird with uniformly gray wings, back and tail. From the front it shows a white belly, and striking white V on the chest, often heard in the distance, with a loud hooting call repeated roughly twice every second. common gray pigeon that is easily identified by the long pointed crest on the top of its head, mostly pale gray with bright iridescence on wings, feeds only on the ground, takes flight with noisy wing flaps, and in flight has a wing whistle, which makes it sound like a wind-up toy, common in open habitats and is often present in suburban areas. Large rusty brown pigeon with faint pale speckles on its plumage. In flight shows white wing panels, and flies with a loud clattering of wings. Found only on the sandstone areas of the Kimberley and Ord Victoria regions. Often roosts on high rocky cliffs, or on top of sandstone towers. Comes down to the sandy ground in the early morning and evening. A large dark brown pigeon with faint pale speckles on its plumage. In flight, shows chestnut wing panels, and flies with a loud clattering of wings. Found only on the sandstone area of Arnhem Land in the Northern Territory, where it can be encountered at locations throughout Kakadu National Park and beyond. Often roosts on high rocky cliffs, or on top of sandstone towers. Comes down to the sandy ground in the early morning and evening. Medium-sized dove with a scaled metallic copper patch on the hind neck, gray face and neck with a pinkish belly. Juveniles have a less obvious patch on the neck, and with more muted plumage and an eye line. Could be confused with the much larger common bronzewing. Forages on the ground in small groups. This species is abundant in woodlands, towns, parks and gardens in northern Australia. Voice is often a repeated 6-note phrase, low low high low low high. Tiny gray dove with a plain neck and chest, and an obvious red ring. This species has tiny pale spots on folded wings. The tail is quite dark, long and pointed, much longer tail than the similar peaceful dove. More common inland and in northern Australia, where it can be abundant in arid grassland areas. A small, grayish-brown dove with dark bars on the breast and back, and bare blue skin around the eye. The call is a rapid series of short coos, higher-pitched, and faster than spotted dove. Native to Southeast Asia, but introduced to many islands, including the Hawaiian Islands, French Polynesia, Mauritius, and the Seychelles. It is generally quite abundant throughout both its native and non-native range, especially in urban and suburban areas, typically not found in dense forests. A small, long-tailed dove with extensive barring over its body, pale gray head with distinctive orange eye ring, upper parts extensively barred brown, paler underside also strongly barred except for unbarred belly. Singles, pairs, and groups occur from sea level to the foothills. Forages on the ground or perches low in open habitats, lightly wooded areas, gardens, scrub, and plantations, often around villages. Unmistakable, the only small, long-tailed, extensively barred dove in range. Conspicuous high-pitched song is a disyllabic, wadaloo, repeated often, also gives a purring g or note. Tiny gray dove with heavy barring on neck and chest. It has a pale blue ring. The back and folded wings are covered in tiny black crescents. Tail is not as long and pointed as diamond dove. When disturbed, it tends to fly up and perch on a nearby open branch. Voice is a repeated slurred three-note phrase, low high low. Large desert pigeon, typically observed as fast-flying flocks coming in to drink in the morning or evening in arid and semi-arid inland northern Australia. Plain brown above, plain gray below. Male has black and white, patterned head. In female and juvenile a more muted brown and white pattern. Upper wings plain brown, with plain gray outer wing. Similar common bronzewing has a metallic wing panel. A plump, attractive brown pigeon with beautiful green and bronze iridescent coloration in the wings. Males have a bright yellow and white forehead that is absent in females. This species inhabits a great variety of habitats and is often seen near a water source, alone or in pairs. When disturbed, they fly away in very direct flight with a loud clatter of wings. They only feed on the ground. A stocky, compact pigeon with iridescent wing feathers, primarily reddish-brown with gray underparts, inhabits dense vegetation, usually where a thick layer of bushes or scrub is present. This species is usually found alone or in pairs, and is often seen drinking at dawn or dusk. A small attractive pigeon with a distinctive long crest, primarily rusty brown plumage with black barring on the wings and back. Adults have a white chin strap with red surrounding the eye. Found in arid, rocky regions of Australia, typically where spinifex grasses are present, and a permanent water source exists nearby. Medium-sized pigeon, usually seen on the ground in open woodland, or along roadsides in northwestern Northern Territory, and the Northern Kimberley in Western Australia. Plain brown plumage, with white stripe along the edge of the breast. Distinctive facial markings, with comical red, Northern Territory, or yellow, Western Australia. Facial skin takes flight with a loud clatter of wings. Compare squatter pigeon, flock bronzewing, with black and white facial markings, and both chestnut-quilled and white-quilled rock pigeons, with pale wing panels. A fairly large pigeon with obvious black and white facial markings, and a white stripe up the side of the belly to the shoulder. Pale white under wings. Common bronzewing has reddish under wings. It occurs in the drier parts of eastern Queensland, where it is much rarer in the south than the north. This species is usually observed on the ground, typically on the side of a dirt road.